Hi all, and welcome to a pretty special episode of Cybeers. You might notice that we don't have a beer on the table. We've got our bubbly, sparkling waters instead, because we're coming to you from sunny and warm Las Vegas, and it is currently 9:29 a.m. And a little bit too early to have a beer origin for my liking. So, really wanted to get together with Milan, DFIR analyst. Welcome, Milan.
Thank you.
As always, it feels like Richard Grainger, Global Head of Digital Forensics Incident Response. Welcome.
Thank you for having me again.
And wanted to get together because we were lucky enough last week to be in Austin, Texas for the SANS DFIR Summit, which was great, and then headed over to beautiful Las Vegas. And now we've been to BSides, and DEF CON starts today, guys. I'm pretty excited. I don't know about you.
Yep.
So really looking forward to obviously getting to DEF CON, but we've already seen and done a lot, and really wanted to get together to do a bit of debrief. First, starting with Austin, with the SANS DFIR Summit, and what we've seen and experienced there, but also then on BSides Las Vegas, which is the precursor. Obviously, there's Black Hat in the middle, but it's very expensive to go to Black Hat, so we've foregone Black Hat and then DEF CON today. So let's start with the SANS DFIR Summit. Rich, what is it? What's special about the SANS DFIR Summit?
Well, it's specifically just for DFIR.
Yeah.
So SANS, they hold these DFIR summits. They're normally sort of just before training starts as well. So they've got ones that they run in the US. They've got some in Europe. I think it's in Prague this year. And then I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's very new as well that they've got the APAC ones as well.
Coming
so there's
to Tokyo,
in
right?
September, there's one in Japan, which is pretty cool. But essentially it's like this one was 2 days. I think most of them are 2 days as well. And essentially you got speakers coming to the venues. They stream it live online as well. So if you can't make it to any of these actual physical places, you can watch it online as well.
And I believe they said there was 250 people in person, roughly, and around 4,000 tuning in live to the live
Slack
stream.
channel was going off.
Yeah, the Slack channel was. I'd check it, and then 5 minutes later, there'd be a whole heap new things to look at.
But yeah, like people coming to talk about DFIR.
Yeah.
So we had a whole bunch of different topics that were ran through while we were there. And yeah, it's just a great opportunity to network as well, to meet people.
Great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And to start seeing how blue is really coming. I've noticed it, just the general buzz around Vegas at the moment, that it's historically and typically been a red, very red flavour for most of the presentations and topics, but it's turning very blue. And it was really good to hear that pre-COVID, when the SANS DFIR Summits ran, it was about 150 people. Now there was 250 with the 4,000 online. DFIR's really just starting to become that preeminent force in the cyber world, and really looking forward to seeing more of these kinds of things at DEF CON kicking off today.
Yeah.
So Milan, what was your favourite topic? What was the key takeaway from the SANS DFIR Summit for you?
Probably the one about Hayabusa, which is like a quick, rapid forensics going through Windows event logs. You can pull in as many event logs files as you want. Just process it, look for the easy wins. It will basically run through Sigma rules and give you output in a CSV or a JSON file, whatever you want, and then basically start from there.
Yeah, and shout out to the whole Hayabusa team, right?
Absolutely.
We've been using the tool since day one, since we built the DFIR team, and to see it, and there was a new version that was released on that day. I think it was 2.7. So really excited to get back and get a big ransomware case, and then integrate that into Velociraptor as well, to start doing just bulk forensics at scale, which allows clients to get back online faster in a secure manner, which is always the key, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a key takeaway, I think, for me as well. Rich, what about you?
Well, the Hayabusa talk was great. As you mentioned, we've been using that for a very long time now, but it was also just maybe some of the key takeaways for me from that one were potential process improvements. So not sort of really overhauling how we use it, but maybe we can use it a little bit better, get the results quicker, and take it from there. Probably my other favorite talk was it was around a ransomware attack. So the different sort of flows and the cycle of a ransomware attack. And I did not take a huge amount of new knowledge from it. which for me was a good thing because obviously we're down under.
Yep.
We're very far away from the rest of the world. Yes. And it was a good sort of validation about like the way that we see ransomwares, how we respond to them, and sort of the takeaways that we get in terms of the threat actors, TTPs and the tools and stuff that they're using. That's being seen around the world as well. So it was really good to sort of see that.
Bit of validation, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I remember when they threw the MITRE ATT&CK framework up and they picked all the boxes and everything and then went, oh yeah, we're seeing the same things. And then they threw up the tooling and the kill chain. It was like splash top, ConnectWise, RMM, and all the same things. So it does show that it's a global thing that we're facing as a community, and we're trying to defend not just against obviously Australian threat actors, which we haven't seen much of, but it is these global ransomware gangs that are hitting Australian organisations. That was, as you say, that bit of validation for me was like, yeah, this is serious. Then this is why we come out to places like Austin and Vegas to do these things and to get these learnings and these understandings. I think one of my key things was seeing the flow and the impact of cloud forensics. There was a number of presentations start to touch on really AWS focused. There was a couple on Azure as well. But how are you guys seeing that starting to bridge networks now that it's not just the one network? You have the internal corporate, and then historically you had the cloud, and it was just completely separated. Now we're seeing that converged network where if you're on the corporate network, you can get straight access to that cloud environment. Rich, we saw some presentations on AWS. How are you seeing that morph?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of organizations where they might not necessarily want to have a rack in their office or a data center somewhere. So they're just spinning up all the infrastructure in the cloud. We'll see a lot of AWS, also see some Azure. Not a lot of GCP.
Not yet.
Not yet, but it's obviously still out there. But I think it's just, they can have that flexibility to be able to spin up all their servers and they don't need to really worry about any physical hardware.
Yeah.
And we've had a number of ransomware engagements where that's been the case, is that they had all of their infrastructure in AWS or they had it in Azure, which from a forensics point of view, it can make it a bit more complex as well, because not only do you have to worry about them accessing those systems, like just interconnecting between the servers, but also you got that extra layer now of infrastructure. So did they get into AWS? Did they get into Azure?
Yep.
Is there persistence in there?
And it used to be simple because it was segregated.
Yeah.
You'd then need to go and log into the AWS or Azure console and then do the administration. But now we've got these hyper-converged networks where you just RDP to a server from the workstation that's sitting in the corporate environment.
Yeah.
And now it's just like you see the servers.
Yeah.
There's no differentiation between it. And I think for forensics, it makes it a little bit easier because we can just shift the EC2, if it's EC2, and we just shift them across, take backups, take copies, and we can do the forensics on that. The challenge then comes if there's not backups, if there's not golden images of the EC2 instances, or even worse, if we're starting to talk serverless or we're starting to talk about Kubernetes. There was a presentation on Kubernetes clusters and digital forensics, and it was like, I sat there going, I only just know what Kubernetes is, let alone doing some forensics on it. So, Milan, what are we expecting to see out of now these cloud environments, and how does that differ? There was a lot of discussion around that.
I think it's going to get easier for us as because there are more and more talks now, more and more write-ups on how to do forensics on cloud environments, especially Azure and AWS. I think it's going to get easier for us. I mean, it's already easier to download and get the images from cloud compared to like on-prem environments where you have to go in, get the copy of it, probably upload it to your Azure, whatever virtual machine that you're using for your forensics. It's already easier to get the images, but there is not much knowledge in the community around how to do forensics on cloud environments. Yeah. So definitely it's going to get better. The other thing is the talk that we went to, which was probably the last talk in DFIR Summit, was about how you can compare differential images from backups. Basically hash everything from both of the images. Yeah, that was
cool, wasn't it?
And then compare it and see what changed and basically only analyze those things, which makes our life a lot easier, right? I mean, we did something similar for a website compromise as well. So we had backups from 2 different points. We basically hashed all the files from both backups and basically looked for changes. We couldn't find anything, which was a good thing. But obviously, it makes our lives a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because it's like a quick win.
Yeah.
Like you can be like, all right, this particular binary has changed between these 2 points in time. But like, all right, I'm going to go, have a look at that, suss it out.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And again, we're not trying to do everything at warp speed because you'll miss things, but giving that ability to the client to say, hey, you can maybe bring this one back online, but we need to put in these precautions first, which there are a lot of discussions I had with people who say, hey, what's your process if you're doing a ransomware investigation? And it was interesting to hear that everyone is pretty much on the same page of doing things in a slow, secure, methodical manner as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah,
that's the thing.
Right, and this is why we've got the UK-based team and some announcements coming as well around expansion of that. So keep an eye on the TL website and the YouTube channel. So just helping to get clients back online in a faster way, but safe and secure. Yeah. And I think that was really where a lot of the hallway discussions came from, or the social events that the SANS team organised, which were fantastic, because you're able to talk to people that are deep in this as well. As you said at the top, not just taking it and looking, going, well, this is us, this is our process, being able to do a bit of that validation. You said to me, like, hey, these are my people.
Yeah, like that's why I loved it. Like it was, just surrounded by, and like DEF CON and Black Hat and BSides, that's cool. Get to hang out with the red teamers, the pen test stuff.
But it's
like
a lot.
It's a lot.
There's 40,000 cyber
It's pretty big.
professionals.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about the SANS DFIR Summit is like surrounded by my people. These people are DFIR, they're CTI, they're blue team.
Yeah,
we're all sort of in the same focus, I guess, and just being able to chat with them and ask how they're doing stuff, tell them how we're doing stuff, what are the common things, and just learning and validating.
And I think now you've mentioned that we've started to see that roll across to BSides Vegas a little bit as well. I noticed a lot of it. There was a lot of discussion around detection engineering.
Yes.
There's a lot of discussion around threat hunting. And there's a lot of discussion around OSINT and CTI, which is not something you typically see out here during Hacker Summer Camp. So, Milan, what were the key things you took away then from BSides from a defensive perspective?
Probably the biggest thing was the vendors. So in the vendor holes, probably like 90% of them were like blue team.
Yeah.
They were either doing some sort of SIEM or analysis or AppSec.
Yeah.
Probably 90% of the vendors in the vendor hole was just blue team. Even the talks, there was so many good blue team talks. We probably had like conflicts every now and then where we wanted to go to like 3 different talks, and we could
so
only
just
go to
divide
one.
and conquer.
Exactly.
We all had to go and then come and share knowledge and go, hey, that was great. Or, maybe we should think about this 1, 2, 3. The really interesting thing I took away was there were, I think, 2 presentations on cost-effective SIEM. And that's like, whoa, that's starting to get into a really interesting realm. So,
Seems important.
Seems very important.
Yeah.
The process creation logs, even more important, right?
Yes.
It's the thing you've always gone on about since day one.
If there's no process creation logs, it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have a log for it, did it even happen? Yeah. So Rich, on BSides, so what were your key takeaway messages you've taken from that?
I think from mine, probably one of the ones that I took the most from was there was a Google Workspace forensics talk, which was really good because, as I mentioned, like it's not probably the most not popular cloud platform at the moment. So there's a lot less people out there using it, especially in Australia. Like we have had a couple of smaller ones, but not any large ransomwares or anything like that. So that was a really good talk to get some additional knowledge about dealing with a case involving GCP.
Yeah, it's interesting they've opened the region in Australia, so we're going to see more adoption of it. It doesn't make it easy when obviously AWS was the leader, Azure just by default it's there because most organizations are using a Microsoft platform, but there are a lot of organizations that do use the Google Workspaces, they do still use Gmail, and they are using Google Cloud. Yeah. So it's just a matter of time before we see a big compromise in GCP. And this brings the challenge of being in DFIR that you've got to have that vast experience across these platforms and be able to determine it and work it out. How about you, Milan, for BSides? Any key takeaways that you've got from that?
Probably it's unexpected, but from one of the Red Team talks that I went to. So it was about how to leverage the new Power Automate, which comes built in with Windows 11.
So just another LOLBAS that we've got to put up with,
Exactly.
right? And if you don't know what LOLBAS is, living off the land, binaries and scripts.
Yep.
So automated built-in tools into Windows.
It's
which
like
threat actors love.
It's like free PS exec built in all the machines.
Easy.
They're already in there. It's so
Killing me.
easy.
You're killing me.
So I mean, it was good for Red Teamers, but it was good for us as well to know that it's possible, and there's something that we need to look out for. And obviously, we need to test and build some of the procedures on how to detect this kind of things in the future as well.
But this is where the purple team approach is super important, right? You can have the best defenses in the world, but if you're not testing them, and if the red and the blue aren't coming together to have that discussion, then what's the real point of doing it? Just having a chat with someone out here who's been in the game for a while, and he said one day he's going to put the red team and the blue team in a room together with some boxing gloves and just say, right, now sort it out, and then we come together. Everyone's going to have purple eyes. So everyone knows the requirement for it to happen. That it's been historic. There's always been that kind of really, for some weird reason, a bit of a differentiation between red and blue. We're starting to slowly bring it together, which is what events like this are great for, to bring everyone together onto the same page.
I've been had a chat with a couple of people at the SANS DFIR Summit about like what we do and stuff, and then also that we have red teamers at Driscoll Labs, and in very large ransomware cases, we'll often bring them in to the fold and be like, hey guys, this is the situation. What are your thoughts on like this initial access method, or we've found this web shell, you want to have a play with it and look at it and tell us more about it?
I don't think they've ever said no either.
No,
Who
they
doesn't
love
want
it.
to
They
play with
love
web shells, right? Or config files or anything
yeah.
they can get their hands on? Because it's not just helping us, that then they look and go, ooh, during the next red team engagement,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to use that method.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's, again, that knowledge sharing that you get when you're working within an organization that's got both sides.
Yeah.
And then this brings in detection engineering and threat hunting,
absolutely.
right? So obviously Matt Veal's also out here. So he'll be coming on the chat in a couple of days where we talk about the rundown from DEF CON. But he's taking a lot out of this as well, to go back and say, okay, well, how do we build detection around this? How do we use CTI to really enable the red team, but also the SOC? And I think that's the key, is the detection engineering, but really importantly, the threat hunting.
Yeah.
So do a threat hunt to look for these things in your environment. Are the defenses working properly?
Yeah.
So
And if they're not, build some.
100%.
Yeah.
Process creation lines.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's say it again. So, Milan, for you as a DFIR analyst, how are you seeing the threat hunting helping you in a day-to-day operation?
Probably, maybe it's going to help me build, as you said, more and more detections out of it. The other thing is, as a DFIR analyst, I know what's happening. I know what's happening in the ransomware engagements. I know what's happening in the BEC environment. And then if I use that knowledge to, let's say, do a hunt for our organization, it will basically test their current posture against whatever I've seen so far.
Yep.
And the biggest takeaway from me from that is basically how secure they are. It just gives them a validation, right? Like, I know
how insecure they are.
Well,
Yeah.
Are the right tools running? Do they
Exactly.
have the right processes? And you can have the top right quadrant tools, the one that everyone tells you to buy. But if you just take it and turn it on out of the box and you say, hey, there's our tool, you are just setting yourself up for
Or if
failure.
no one's monitoring it.
Yeah, or if no one's monitoring it, right? But you can't just take these tools that are built en mass at scale and say, right, there it is. You've got to customize it. You've got to be looking in there all day, every day. You've got to be looking, going, okay, what's the new threat? Build a new detection. Build a new customized approach. All of our environments for our customers are completely different based on their environment. But then also, as you say, Rich, monitor it. And I think that's something I've taken away from both, and we've said it for years, from both the SANS DFIR Summit but also BSides is around that monitoring. There was a lot of discussion around monitoring. So we can preach it, but everyone's preaching it at the same time.
Yeah.
And I mean, another thing that most of people don't think about is already whitelisted detections. So if you're doing threat hunting and something is already whitelisted and it's not triggering that where it should be, it basically gives you something to test for when, obviously, if you have SIEM environment, if you have EDR environments, and if you're running it constantly, monitoring constantly, there'll be some whitelisting in place because you don't want noise. You don't want to burn out your analysts, right?
Yeah.
So the threat hunting will give us that validation that your whitelisting is proper. It's not too broad and it's very restrictive and it's only applicable where it's needed.
It's also really good as well for potentially identifying legitimate tools that are being used in a nefarious manner. Not just like lol bins and things like that, but also like pretty much all the ransomwares we have. We see the same data exfiltration tools. FileZilla, Arclone, you know, all of those, we're seeing them. So doing a threat hunt for those in the environment will give you the ability to see are they actually being used in a legitimate manner, and if they're not, potentially you want to block them.
Yeah,
because so that might, you know, that alert firing might stop data exfiltration.
absolutely. Look, we went to a presentation that was around tuning. I'm a fan of tuning. I am, because otherwise you've potentially got millions of alerts for the analysts to look through. You want to be able to filter it out, to really sieve what's important. You want to get that down from millions into the tens, if possible. You don't want to be hitting that hundreds, but you need to be doing threat hunting to make sure that you haven't tuned it too hard. Because then if you've tuned it too hard, you might be missing some key pieces of information. That's the real nugget that I took out. If you're tuning and not doing threat hunting, you might be running into a bit of a problem there.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
All right, Rich, final thoughts before we wrap up and head down to DEF CON. Any final key bits of wisdom from either SANS DFIR Summit or BSides?
I think check out the SANS DFIR Summit webcast because they've got all the presentations.
Yep.
You can watch them all online. One of the things that I really enjoyed as well, there was a presentation on diagrams, attack diagrams.
Yeah, they were cool.
And the next, like the meta thing as well, is that during everything on the main stage at the SANS DFIR Summit, there was someone actually doing a sketch notes. Sketch notes
are so cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before, and it was live. They were sketch noting as well. Shout out to the SANS team for organising that.
They're great, but I think that was also a really good talk from my perspective as well, because we do a lot of diagrams and things like that for various levels. Like we might have some more technical for the technical team, but also a really sort of high-level diagram for a board or an executive summary in a report is very useful. So I got some good sort of information out of that I'm taking back as
Expect to see more diagrams in reports. Is that what we're
sorry
hearing?
in advance to everyone reading those reports. They're going to be longer.
Look, but it makes it easier to distill in images. It's why we also do these recordings, right? Is it's a lot easier to sit, either look at a diagram or watch a video than it is to try to digest possibly hundreds of pages of text in a report, which is still important for the detail. But if you can summarize that into a diagram, it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Milan, any final thoughts, key takeaways before we get down to the excitement that is DEF CON?
Probably a lot of it, but the main one was there was this talk at BSides at the underground channel, which obviously we can't
talk about TLP Red.
Exactly. But it was basically about how the ransomware gangs work from the inside.
Yeah.
And there was this slide on attack chain and how they basically attack organization from their side. And it was basically matching with whatever we were finding in a ransomware engagement. So it was like a good validation from someone who is actually in the gang and basically saying that, okay, we are seeing everything that they're doing already. So that was biggest takeaway from me.
Yeah, so we got that validation at both the SANS DFIR Summit and at BSides. It makes it all worthwhile. So, all right, team, let's wrap it there. Cheers to our waters.
Cheers.
Cheers. And we're going to head down to DEF CON today and then we'll bring some thoughts back with the wider team later in the week. So we'll see you there.
Excellent.
Thanks all.